He's the world's leading authority on executions, so I'm hoping it's not hereditary. But I suppose you take your time and you'd be looking for a subject. The first subject I came across was Muthaiga Club. When I was writing the book on Muthaiga Club, I realized that there wasn't much history of Muthaiga Club, so I expanded it to the history of Nairobi, or to that matter, history of Kenya. What I'm about to show you today is kind of a mix and mash of what I've been doing. The first part, there's two parts. First part is about going back to the history of Kenya. Not many people seem to know how it all happened, why it happened, good or bad. And then in the last part, it tells the story of what Nairobi used to look like 100 years ago, and then what it looks like today. It's a pictorial essay of that. So I'm not very good at this, so bear with me. And the origin of the word Africa is still actually vague, but a possible correlation exists with the Latin word for sunny, which is aprica, or the Greek word for not cold, which is Afrique. The name may also have come from the Berber people who lived to the south of Carthage, the Afariq, or the Auriga, whence Afriga or Africa, to denote the land of the Afariq. Another derivation of the word Africa may have come from the Phoenician word farika, meaning the land of fruit. Some believe the name stems from the Yemenite chief named Africus, who invaded North Africa and founded a town called Afrika. But it's more likely that the Arabic term Ifriqiya is the transliteration of the word Africa. So how did Nairobi come into being? Missionaries like Johann Ludwig Krapf, in June 1848, Johannes Rebmann became the first European to see Mount Kilimanjaro. Krapf and Rebmann's reports about Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya were derided by a skeptical Royal Geographical Society who denounced the possibility of snow-capped mountains on the Equatoria in Africa. Sir Samuel White Baker set out in 1863 to find the source of the Nile. In March 1864, Baker mistakenly determined the source to be a lake, which he named Albert Nyanza, Lake Albert, after Queen Victoria's consort. In 1856, Richard Burton, no relation to Elizabeth Taylor, with John Hanging Speke, came to Africa in search of the source of the Nile. Together they discovered Lake Tanganyika, and while Burton lay ill, Speke discovered Lake Victoria on his own. In 1862, Speke returned to Africa, and James Augustus Grant discovered the source of the Nile at Ripon Falls. In 1994, the British government declared a protectorate over Buganda, as plans for the construction of the railway, Uganda Railway, were finalised, with the route chosen being surveyed by Major J.R.L. MacDonald in 1892. Rumour has it that the Sultan also agreed to this, but as evidenced by this picture, I'm not sure he had much choice. In 1895, after prolonged negotiations with all concerned, and here they are, the British government finally agreed to purchase the Imperial British East Africa Company's territorial rights for £250,000. And on the 1st of July 1895, the Foreign Office assumed responsibility for the company's concessions. By 1910, Nairobi had become the hive of activity, and the town was beginning to expand rapidly. Sub-Commissioner John Ainsworth, who had once had a nice little number going on in Machakos, didn't particularly like the idea of moving to Nairobi, but in the end he capitulated and moved lock, stock and barrel to an area of land where the Nairobi Museum now stands. Here, so he could get into town, he built a bridge, which is called Ainsworth Bridge. These days, it's popularly known as Museum Hill Bridge. This is Forest Road. This road was named Forest Road because the road went through a forest. Not stupid, these Mzungus, are they? And here's a photograph of the road from Nairobi to Muthaiga, taken in 1911. I find it remarkable how the photographer, so he could get a good picture, asked all those nice Matatu people to hide in the trees. However, to understand how Muthaiga, particularly, a state started, we have to step back a few years. In 1901, Sub-Commissioner John Ainsworth, who had now settled in Nairobi, recommended to Sir Charles Elliot, the then Commissioner of East Africa Protectorate, that 1,600 acres of unallocated land situated to the north of Nairobi should be given no less, to these people. Mr. Guy Sambak Baker, who actually comes from where I am, in Manchester. And anybody says anything about Manchester United? Chelsea? There he is with his Mrs. Queenie, on condition that he produced dairy products for the Protectorate. Sambak Baker, who had been educated at Owens College, Manchester, and Cheshire County Agricultural College, blah, 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 had been a bankrupt cotton broker in Manchester prior to his arrival in British East Africa in 1901. He called his newly acquired property Homestead Farm, having been constructed on the site where today's Gertrude's Gardens Children's Hospital now stands. The farm soon became a major supplier of dairy products to the Protectorate. Move over Brookside. During his time in the Protectorate, Guy Sambak Baker, using his previous experience in England, also played a major role in the development of cotton growing industry in East Africa. Then, in early 1912, Hewitt Grogan, a prominent member of the settler community, heard that a guy called Archie Morrison, deemed to be one of the richest men in England, was arriving at Nairobi railway station, so he encouraged his friend and agent, Freddie Ward, to meet the train. He arranged that Archie stayed at Chiromo, a fine residence that overlooked Nairobi town with Ngong Hills and the Athi River plains in the distance. For this reason, an invitation was to give Grogan and his business associates, Northrop Macmillan, Wilfred Hunter, and of course Freddie Ward, the opportunity to convince Morrison of the benefits of investing some of his disgusting wealth. Mr. Ian MacLeod, the Secretary of State for the Colonies, called a conference at Lancaster House to agree the type of government Kenya could adopt to give the country independence. There was also no doubt that this would result in a democratic form of government based on one man, one vote, which would mean African majority rule. This, of course, scared the living daylights out of the white community, whose farmlands would be threatened. But, as subsequently, free and fair elections were called, and everybody got their vote, and I mean everybody. Here are Turkana women voting for their particular candidate. Even people like Sir Ferdinand Cavendish Bentinck joined in and canvassed to be an elected official. His preferred logo was the hippo, and to this day he's probably still wondering why he lost. But as you can see from this photograph of Tom Mboya and Jomo Kenyatta, KANU was elected in a landslide victory. Back in London, the new Kenya national flag was seen for the first time in London as Army Officer Cadet Mahato marched through the crowd of students at the Tavistock banqueting rooms, Charing Cross Road. Now we're going to look at what it used to look like, and today, what it looks like today. Nairobi railway station looked like in 1899. That's what it looks like today. Of 6th Avenue, taken at about 1902, which then became Delamere Avenue in 1933, and now, of course, Kenyatta Avenue. That's what it looks like today. Remarkable difference.